Welcome back, adventurers, to another episode of the Pale Lands. Thank you so much for your patience while we have been working on getting this live and to you. We're going to kind of just jump right in. Probably have already watched part one. Before we get started, I do want to just give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Describe, for making this episode possible. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So we have today Sylvetta Thade. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. You previously were on a ship, the Wailing Maw, and you were heading south to the unknown new lands of the southern continent with your companion, Elidere. And you had a mysterious map in your possession. In that time that you were on the ship, you met a stowaway after you were attacked by mermaids. Actually, hang on 2 seconds. Let me get my notes open. I have a whole thing. There's a whole thing I should be looking at. On a ship. And actually, before we do that, why don't you remind our players what Sylvetta Thade looks like, our viewers, listeners.
So she is fairly pale, probably a little bit sunburnt from her adventures out in the sandy areas. She has long, natural red hair that's wavy, a little curly, with green eyes. She has a medallion that she wears around her neck on a long leather strap. And she's wearing, right now, being in a colder area, a lot more warmer clothes than what she was wearing previously.
To kind of recap really quickly what has happened since you marched out of Martine, you are from a city called Cantos, where your father and you lived in the outskirts of the capital city, but you frequented the university there, and you spent much of your childhood in the university there, your father being one of the scholars there, who spent his entire life studying ancient civilizations, specifically the Eldar, the elves, and you sort of distanced yourself as he became more and more enraptured with his work. And 6 months ago, I guess 6 months plus some change at this point, 6 months ago, you received a letter from that was delivered by a friend of his. Solomon delivered a letter to you from your father. In that letter, he basically said that, Sylvetta, you hold the key to solving this riddle that he has been working on, and asked for Solomon to bring you to the ruins of Istrakar, where you traveled, which is where the story picked up. In those ruins, you saw a statue that had a sort of weird cutout in the center, and you found a map inside. You took that map, you went to the capital of Nidora, to Saval, and from Saval, after some fuckery in the town, you you chartered a ship, and you sailed south to the colonies where this map seems to be indicating for you to go. You have no idea why your father has asked you to do this. You still have not found him. People have been trying to take this map from you, but you did get on the ship. You found yourself on that ship, the Wailing Maw, heading south to the continent that is now the new colonies, where much history has been lost. And you are going with a bard, the Elidere, who is known as the Poet of Death, or the Black Bard, and he is traveling with you south. On that journey south across the sea, you met a stowaway. You were attacked by mermaids, and you discovered that the map seemed to be activated, or I guess activated is the best word, by moonlight. Something about moonlight interacts with the map a certain way. You were able to sort of fine-tune your location, your search, by using the moonlight that was pouring through. And you arrived in Martine, and the three of you, Tia and Elidere and yourself, made your way to the fortress in the center of town, where you met Captain Selby Wright, commander of the Crimson Mantle here in the town, and the only imperial presence in the southern colonies was this fortress here. And you also dreamed in your first night there at this fortress, you dreamed of a woman. You dreamed of a woman that was made seemingly of molten gold or fire that just moved around her. Runes that were white light covered her arms. And she said to you in this dream that I guess I'll just quote, I have slept for millennia. And she said, yours is the first of your blood that she has sensed in many ages. They seek darkness, but fear not, what they will find is light. And you woke up, and as the sun rose for the first time in many, many days, and kind of came up over the horizon, you came outside and found Selvi waiting for you. He gave a rousing speech, and within a couple of days, you left the colonial town of Martine with some 20 or 30 volunteers who decided to go with you as you continue your journey south into the heart of the Pale Lands. And that is sort of where we left off. You have decided to go south to look for your father. So I guess before we jump into anything, I would like to know what is on Sylvetta's mind. What is she thinking as she's traveling with not only a bunch of strangers who are walking in silver armor and flowing red capes, chainmail and plate armor and all sorts of different pieces, some horses, and also with Tia, and with, which, by the way, Tia, for those of you who don't know, kind of looks like Rapunzel when she gets her hair cut. Like that, like, brown bob, and she's got these, like, dark brown eyes, relatively small, but you do see that she is wearing armor that she picked up, and you also watched previously in the last episode that she picked up a sword that was handed to her, and she swung it like she knew what she was doing. And then you're also traveling with Elodie, who has, been with you for a while. So with this sort of mishmash of people, what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I definitely think she feels like she's more prepared than she thought she was going to be on this mission. But being here and hearing the things that people have been saying to her, there's still doubt. There's worry. How many of these people that she's looking at right now, how many of them are going to come back with them? I'm going to assume that Sylvetta is making a list of every single person that is in this party, and she's going to keep track of how many people she's going to lose on this way. But she does go in with a very determined mind of, like, we're going to get this done, whatever it takes.
I just want to make sure of one thing really quick. You find yourself... Oh, loud sound effects. You find yourself marching uphill at the moment. You're just marching continuously more and more uphill as you get closer to this. And just to sort of paint a picture, I guess, from the moment that you saw the land mass, right? The moment you saw land from the ship, you saw a massive mountain, a ridge that just extends away from you, so not left and right, but a massive mountain that goes towards the land. And this is a mountain that is known as the Shield. It's sort of the thing that protects you, if that makes sense. Like, the reason that the colonies can exist there is because of this mountain range that extends sort of behind them and separates what is considered the beginning of the Pale Lands from the colonies. So it acts as like a natural barrier.
Okay.
So the Shield, you see this mythical mountain basically sort of in front of you as you arrived, and since you left the city, you have been going pretty much, obviously closer to it, and sort of started to scale its base as you're heading into more hilly territory. But if you could imagine for a moment looking down through like a drone at this landscape, you see the city. Obviously you see the ocean, you see the city, the sand, this like yellow orange sand that just sort of extends there. But pretty much from the back of the city, which is probably about a half mile up the shore. From that point forward on, it is just dense jungle, and at the moment is relatively humid. It's not hot, but it's humid. Yeah, you and your 30 travelers are making their way along this mountainside up towards the hill, and making slowly closing the gap into the southern area. So yeah, so if you could I guess one more time recap for me what it is that Sylvetta is feeling and thinking.
She's going in just worried about everybody that's coming with her, but also feeling like she has strength behind her. She knows that this road is going to be very hard, very treacherous, and she is most worried, obviously, for her closest companions, which would be Elodie and Tia. But she is going to catalog, I think, every single person that's in this party and keep track of who makes it out of this in the end. How many people is she going to lose?
Okay. As far as, like, even the volunteers, like, you're making it a note to, like, learn their names. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Why is that? Does she feel a sense of, like, this is my responsibility now because they chose to come here for me?
Yeah, absolutely, she does. She knows that they're free people, like, they can decide what they want to do, but at the same time, like, they wouldn't be out here if it wasn't for her.
Okay. Why don't you do me a favor, and for the first roll of the second part of the Pale Lands, I would like for you to roll a d6 for me.
Okay. That would be a 2.
A 2. Okay. So, it has been 4 days for you since you left the town, since you left Martine. Mm-hmm. It has been 4 days of non-stop rain, and today in particular has been very, very heavy rain. And on top of that, as the sun has started to rise, there has been this wind that comes along with it. And as it does at the beginning and end of every week, there is this sort of wind that people just become used to. But here, for whatever reason, the wind is particularly strong. And it has made it so hard for you and your team to make it up through this territory. Horses are getting stuck in the mud. Soldiers are collapsing and having to, like, climb out of this, like, thick slosh that hasn't stopped coming down. And I need you to make 2 rolls for me.
Okay.
For the first one, make a survival check for me.
That is going to be a 14.
Okay, a 14. And for the second one, I would like for you to make a dexterity saving throw for Sylvetta. And I'm going to make one here for Elodie and for Tia.
That is going to be a 15.
Okay. So, this is what happens. You and your survival was a 12?
My survival was a 14, and then my dexterity saving throw was a 15.
Gotcha. So you rolled relatively well. So with a decent enough survival check, you are towards the front of the column, right? Like, there's, again, including you, probably 25 to 30 people marching sort of in a row, probably 2 or 3 abreast, and you are scaling up this hillside, and the whole time for the last 4 days of nonstop daytime, for our viewers who don't remember or who are new to the channel or what have you, Malidea is a moon that is tidally locked, and so the sun and night, or the day and night cycle, is really, really slow. And right now you are on your 4th day, which is basically noon, high sun, and as you've been marching along, the ground has been heating up and it's starting to get hotter and muggier and more humid. The rain has not stopped, And you hear what is unmistakably the sound of water rushing very, very quickly. You feel it before you hear it. And you have a split second, basically, react. You turn around, you see the whole column sort of extending behind you down into the not valley, but down below, right where you've been traveling from. You just see this canopy of trees out in front of you, and you have a split second to react. And with a 15, you grab onto a vine, you put your footing up on some roots, and you watch as the ground beneath you starts to, like in seconds, floods. This torrential downpour leads to a flash flood that just comes out of the, like from up beyond the mountain, around the corner, just starts pouring down, and you watch as troops all around you start to panic. Both Eladier and Tia did not roll well. You watch as both of them slip and start to get swept away. I'm going to roll for everybody else right now while you tell me what it is that you're doing.
How far away were Eladier and Tia from me?
Well, you tell me. Would you be traveling alongside them? Would you be traveling with Selvi, who is the captain of this?
I feel like I would be fairly close to all three of them, honestly. Selvi, Tia, and Eladier. If they're close to me, I think I would grab, because I know that there's multiple people here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a bit of rope that I have to the end of one of my arrows, and I'm going to try to shoot this arrow into another tree, and tie it off. That way we can have something to kind of grab onto and try to, like, walk over towards each other the best that we can to try to get people out.
Okay. So I'm going to say everybody in front of you and about half of the soldiers, so you watch about 10 people slip and fall, and the water just comes rushing over to them. So a lot of heads disappear under a large amount of water very quickly, including Eladier and Tia. The captain, Selvi, is not. So he is able to sort of steer his horse up. He reacts just in time, just like you do. He, probably being as experienced as he is, has had his fair share of these sorts of events happening, which are not uncommon on Malidea. And so that's what you turn around, you see a bunch of people disappear under the water. What I'm going to say is that because you're near Selvi, I'm going to allow you to roll with advantage as you, in a split second, grab some rope from your bag, tie it very quickly around an arrow, and throw the arrow onto your bow and shoot it. I'm going to say that you're probably shooting it low against the water, basically, to act as, like, something for people to grab onto.
Yeah.
And you're aiming for, like, the lower area where people are being swept to, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
So, that's a lot to happen. I'm going to say that this is a DC 15.
Okay.
Not impossible, but for you to do it quickly, throw that rope on there, and to hit a target that is on the other side in this chaos, I'm going to say it's a 15.
Okay.
So, I'm going to say, let's do either athletics, sleight of hand. Yeah. I'm going to say, in order to, either of those in order to quickly do this, and I'm going to have you roll to hit to see if you can hit the tree.
Okay, and you said...
So this is rolling for, like, doing all of the things in that time.
Okay, perfect. And then you said with advantage, right? Because I have Selby next to me.
Exactly. Like,
Okay.
both of you are sort of reacting in this, like, slow-mo bullet time moment.
Okay, I'm gonna use sleight of hand.
Okay.
And with that, I get a dirty 20.
Nice. Okay. So, with lightning quick reflexes, you hear the water coming, and you're already reaching. Like, your hand was going towards your weapons, but when you realized what it was, your hand was already close enough that you reached in, grabbed your rope, and you're already fastening it to the arrow as the water starts to pour down. You're like, oh shit. You tie the arrow, you put it on your bow, and you aim just as everybody starts to slip under. Now I need you to roll to hit. So with your arrow, this is a normal roll, but it is not a difficult DC because it is a tree that is not moving, and the trees on Malidea are pretty damn big.
And this is like a regular weapon attack, correct?
Yeah, exactly, with your bow.
Gotcha.
Crossbow?
No,
Or bow?
regular bow. That is
Okay.
gonna be 16 plus 9, which is gonna be 25.
Damn. Yes, 25 is more than enough. So you see the water come, you tie the rope to the arrow. You're already aiming as people start to fall under the water, and you loose the arrow. It goes sailing over the water line that is now pouring down the hillside that you guys just traversed up, and the arrow hits the tree, and already people start grabbing it. Give me, I don't even know what to roll for this, just a D100, and what we want is, we're going to say you want a 30 or higher.
30 or higher. Oh my god. I got a 12.
A 12?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't see Tia or Eladir
Okay.
grabbing onto the rope. So that's where you're at right now. I think at this point, we're going to slip into a pseudo initiative. So roll initiative for me and let me know what you got. I'm going to roll initiative for 3 things. I'm going to roll initiative for Tia, for Eladir, for the environment.
Okay.
So the water will have its turn, and I will let you know what happens. This is pretty dire, because both of your teammates, Tia and Eladir, are not to be seen,
Yes.
and could potentially get swept hundreds of feet out into jungle, and who knows what will happen. So we want to roll well. So first I'm going to roll for Eladir, who rolled a 18.
Okay.
Tia rolled a an 11, and the environment rolled a 16. What did you get?
Okay, let me roll. I got a 16.
Okay. So it will be Eladir, then you, then the environment, and then Tia. And then we will roll for sort of everybody else, but we'll do that in a second.
Okay.
So Eladir is going to try to break the surface right now. This is going to be an athletics check for Eladir. Not particularly good at that, but he is currently fighting a force of nature to try and resurface as he's getting swept out. And you watch, waiting for a few seconds, looking at as the water is just pouring down the mountainside. You are watching. A few seconds go by. He doesn't surface. What do you do? It's your turn.
He did surface.
He did not.
Did not. Okay. I would like.
I did not.
I have a special thing for my roguish archetype called Eye for Detail, and it allows me to do a perception or investigation check as a bonus action. So I want to see if I can see Eladir.
All right. It's not going to be an easy DC. It's definitely going to be a little higher, but I'm going to say I'm going to say roll with advantage, just because it is something that you have as a feature. I think that for this particular instant, go ahead and roll with advantage.
Okay. And I am... I think I'm going to do... What would you say would be better for this one, investigation or perception?
This would be... And that feature allows you to roll... or as a bonus action, you can do perception or investigation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see. For this particular instance, I'm going to say it is a perception check, because you're not really investigating the water. You're looking. You're keeping your eye open to spot someone.
Okay.
You're not really investigating anything.
Gotcha. Okay. Roll. Ooh. Okay, that is a 22.
Okay. You spot his doublet break the water. It looks like he is currently face down, but you do spot him. For just a moment, you see him, and he's currently being swept out.
How far from me is he?
How far is he? Sorry, I have to sneeze. Good lord, okay. How far is he from you? I would say that at this point, he is 30 feet. We'll say 30 feet
30
for
feet?
now. But the moment your turn ends, he will be swept out very far.
I would like to use my movement and try to get to him to where I can grab him.
Okay, so explain to me how you're going to move through the water. Or are you just trying to like go along some non-flooded area?
I believe that's kind of what I'm thinking, is going around some non-flooded area. Is he close to where like the rope is?
So parallel to the water.
Or is he past that?
Yeah, he was close to you. So I'm going to say that right about now, as you spot him, he is within, like, if you wanted to use the rope, he is within distance of, like, he's along that line going under the rope, about to move past him.
Okay, I will use the rope to get closer to him and try to grab him. I rolled an 18 on the die. My dexterity is a +6.
So 24.
24.
Okay. You, like some sort of character out of Assassin's Creed, you have the rope attached to the arrow that went across, but the rope on your side is still like a whole coil of rope. So you take it, you go around a tree, so you create sort of like a hook around this tree, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you take the rest of the rope and you fire it across the way again. So now you have like a sort of like a trapeze to walk on and a secondary rope going above it for you to hold on to. So you're sort of have like a footing line and a line for you to sort of use as a grapple for your arms, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you start sort of circus walking across the water. I will say with a 24, at the moment, you're standing over the surging water, and Eladir is sort of under you. So if you want to reach for him, that is something that you can do.
Okay, I would like to try.
Okay. That was a bonus action to scan him. I would say it's your action to have
Got that far.
done the rope stuff. Yeah. So... yeah.
Could I at least, for a reaction, not grab him, but at least just put my arm out for him to grab, if he is able to on his next turn?
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I'll say that you can grab onto him, but you're not doing anything. Like,
Gotcha.
you're not pulling
Okay.
him up or anything.
Yeah.
You have him, but that's all you can do.
Okay.
sort of like interacting with his belt. Yeah. So now we are going to make a contested check. Eladir is struggling, and he does not want to lose against the environment here. The environment is basically trying to push him down the hill. So I'm going to roll for Eladir's athletics, which is a 10 total for the environment. Okay. You watch as the water is surging. You have him. You see he's face down, so when you grab onto his belt, you're afraid that he's like out cold or something. For this, he got so lucky. For this, like as you're grabbing him, you see his head come up, and he just goes, Sylvetta! And he just starts thrashing in the water. He is, at the moment, okay. He didn't get swept up, but I'm going to do... okay. Okay. Everybody around you seems to be okay. You don't know if anybody has fallen... you're not aware if anybody has been swept out, and if there's any casualties or anything like that, but from what you're looking around as you're on this and you've got his belt, people's heads are coming up, and that includes Tia and Eladir. So you see your comrades, and you see other people coming up as the water starts to spread out instead of sort of turn into a river, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at right now. Eladir is 100% going to try and grab you, which easily does with a 19 on the die. Turns around, grabs your wrist, and now you are holding on to him. It is your turn. What do you do?
Okay, now that I'm going to kind of... Because I also have Tia I need to look for as well. Eladir is not... Is he secure now? Like, is he kind of doing something on his own? Like, does he have the rope?
Sure, yeah. He turns around, grabs you, and sort of pulls himself. That's basically what he was doing, was like he was using his action to sort of secure himself and save himself.
So then
he's in self-preservation mode.
I would like to do another perception check as a bonus action to see if I can see Tia.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and roll.
That is a dirty 20.
Dirty 20?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, you spot her. Her head comes up at the end of the last round. Her head comes up, and she is thrashing, and she's like, somebody! Yeah, I'll say that you see her. Something that you hear her say that kind of catches you off guard. You hear her mention through all of the chaos, she's like, I can't swim! And she's just like reaching for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, how far away
you do see her.
from me is she?
She is now a little bit beyond the rope, so she is down towards the bottom of the hill that you guys just climbed, and yeah. So I guess to answer your question, at this point, between 45 and 60 feet, depending, I guess, on like what you're doing.
Okay.
I will say that as a, and I'm still figuring out how the hell bards work. I don't know why I decided to put a bard in my world. I'll say that Eladir, with his last turn, will give you bardic inspiration.
Okay.
So if that helps at all,
So
we'll say that he, with a little, honestly, the way I picture it is like he's sort of like a wizard or a sorcerer, I guess, more so, in that he has magic in him that he has just learned to channel through his poetry and his magic, like sort of like his muse, and he doesn't realize that the music is giving him the confidence to cast the magic, but that he's always sort of had it in him, like, you know what I mean? He just chooses to channel it a different way, like through a specific sort of arcane focus. But as he kind of touches you, he looks up at you as you're helping him up. He just grabs your wrist and just gives you this look, totally wet puppy look, big eyes looking up at you, and just, thank you, my friend. And you feel sort of a warmth pass through you.
Okay.
And that's his bardic inspiration.
Does Tia seem to be in the middle of the water or towards the sides? Like, is she closer towards one of the banks?
I'm gonna say that she was closer towards. I mean, bank. There really is, because it's not a river, right? It's just water that just came out of nowhere. But she is sort of on this elevated off to the side part, like where, to the point where you kind of see her flopping like a fish on mud, and is just trying desperately not to get pulled back into the center area where all this water is rushing. Okay. So she's off to the side, if that makes sense, but is in a danger zone.
Okay.
For sure.
Then I want to get off the
music.
rope and start running down the side it doesn't have the water or anything, and try to get closer to her so I can try to grab her.
Okay. Roll an acrobatics check for me.
That would be a 12.
Okay, a 12. Was that with advantage?
That was not with advantage.
Okay, roll with advantage. Because you have those 2 lines.
With an advantage, that puts me at 14.
Okay. Not good. You feel... Actually, roll a d4 for me.
D4?
Yeah. We are deciding which of the 2 lines are going to snap.
That would be a 3.
A 3? The line above you gives way. So now I need you to roll a... Ooh, let's call it... I guess another acrobatics check for me.
Okay. That is going to be a 19.
Okay, good. That's good. You wobble as the rope above you gives way, and you sort of steady yourself with your hands. You're sort of crouching over the line right now. And honestly... Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that now I have this loose rope in my hand?
Sure.
Okay. When I make it across, I'm thinking of tying the end of that rope to another arrow and shooting it just past Tia. So that way, as she's getting pushed, she can have time to grab onto that while we hold it.
Okay. So you're basically doing a Mulan.
I am exactly doing the Mulan move, yes.
Okay. All right. You get across as the line breaks. You're holding on to... Okay, yeah. I'll say go ahead and roll to hit. We are looking for a... You're aiming at just open water and past her?
Yeah.
Okay. We're looking for a 16 or higher.
Alright. That's a 14 plus 9, which is going to be a 23.
Beautiful. You aim... You let go, the arrow goes sailing past her, hits the water, and just flattens out next to her. She reaches out and grabs it. And we're going to do another check. Eladir is going to... Well, so we're going to do a couple things here. Eladir is going to check to see if he can get himself right, basically, and out of this surge with the nat 20. So he makes it across. He pulls himself out, hits the ground around him. Like he comes out like a flopping fish, just and just starts moving like across, like army crawling across away from the water. Immediately flips onto his back just to see what the hell's going on, and looks out at everybody sort of screaming around him. He has not had a good time on this adventure thus far. Now I'm going to check to see if Tia can beat the water, basically. So it's the environment's turn. So the water with a natural 3 on the dice. So Tia just has to not roll like shit, and she can beat the water. So this is her roll, which she beats. That's an 11 on the die. Yes. She has a little bit of a plus. So she using the rope pulls herself up and off to the side, and you see she like fingernail grabs onto the soil of the thick jungle floor and just starts pulling herself up out of the water, flops onto her back, grabs the tree trunk behind her, and just watches as the water sort of gives way. Now, so the 3 of you are safe. You are off out of the way. The water starts to kind of I guess become normalized. Like it's sort of distributing across the area more versus like a jet stream now. But we're gonna see how many people were lost, if any. Okay. We want on this roll I'm gonna say a 14 or higher. Okay, that was a 7 on the die. So out of the people that you had started with, as people start pulling themselves up out of the side, you turn, and the water just sort of keeps rushing. You now have sort of like a temporary river that has formed between you guys. And this monsoon that sort of just came out of nowhere has now divided some of your people. As you look around, you start counting at what's happening. Captain Selby is like off his horse, trying to keep it from darting off, and he's turning around. He's like, "Sound off, man! Sound off!" And everybody starts kind of calling out, and you, as he's doing this, are already counting. You're missing 6 people.
Oh wow!
So it's up to you what you want to do right now. The mountain is still calling. Like, you still have to make... You're not... As a note, you're not going towards the mountain. You're sort of moving along it.
Okay. I would like to do another perception check and see if I can just see any of those missing 6 people.
Okay. Go ahead and roll for me. I'm going to roll something here behind the screen.
Oh, God. That would be 8.
An 8? Yeah. With a natural 1 behind the screen here. You don't see anybody else pop up.
Okay. I'll just turn over to Selby and I'll just say, we gotta keep going. Hopefully we can find more as we go, but we gotta keep moving.
You see he's sort of shell-shocked right now. He's looking around. Troops are moving up towards him, sort of regrouping, and he is also aware of that he's missing a few, and he's looking around, half listening, just a look of terror on his face as he sees sort of this chaos. This rain is still coming down, by the way, and after a moment he sort of snaps out of it and looks at you and just, yes, of course, the mission. And you see he sort of turns the horse and he just goes, "Soldiers of Alara, keep moving," and turns and starts to steer the horse. And you see morale is not great right now.
No.
Really rough start. I think of all the ones you could have rolled, that was, well,
the
honestly,
worst.
there were some other bad ones. Yeah, it is definitely one of the toughest ones. Yeah. Okay. You continue on. So now you are heading into the end of the 4th day, the beginning of the 5th day, as far as hours that you have spent. It is still bright outside. And I don't mean that there's any sunlight. Obviously, it is torrential downpour, dark clouds, but it is light outside in that it is not a nighttime sky. You continue to trek through this jungle. I need for you to roll a survival check for me.
Okay. That is going to be a 15.
Nice. You, I'm assuming, are sort of staying towards the head of the column?
Yeah.
Okay. So moving towards the like as you're at the front, you are one of the first people that notices sort of along the gray, dark gray, at times patchy white clouds, you see smoke rising, a black plume of smoke rising in the distance. You're the first person to notice it.
Interesting. I'm gonna bring this up to Captain Selby. Just let him know what I'm noticing.
It was a 15 survival, right?
Yes.
So as a note, you know that it is in the direction of where you want it to be going. So it's either something is on fire in that direction, or it's a campfire.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring it to his attention, and I'm gonna say, do you think we should go and check? Maybe that could be those people that we lost. It could be them. It could be somebody else. What do you think would be a best decision?
You see, he doesn't even say anything. He just sort of looks at the smoke in the distance, looks at a couple soldiers, nods, and the two of them take off, like towards in that direction, towards the trees. They bring up sort of scarves, cover their mouths, and just dart off in that direction. You see, he puts his hand up for everybody to stop moving. He looks at you and says, "Just give us a few minutes. They'll be back."
Okay.
And you see he kind of takes a moment, gets off his horse, looks at you as you guys are waiting. Not a great start.
No, it wasn't. But I think we knew when we were coming out here that this was never going to be an easy thing.
I don't doubt the courage of my troops. Nobody was forced to come out here. We all chose to do this, and we did this because we all saw something in you. We see something in you. I think that their morale might be a little low if there was something that we could do to help. And you see Eladier kind of comes up, and he puts his arm around you and him, and he's like, "Sorry to butt in. I couldn't help but notice that you needed some morale." And he kind of grabs his lute from behind him, and he's like, "I think I can help." And he just gives you a wink and just starts playing some music while you guys are waiting here. And you see a couple people start to smile, and everybody's sort of gathering. Everybody is sopping wet, and it's miserable too because it's humid. Although I will say that you have noticed that a breeze has picked up since that storm, or since that flash flood came. That breeze has not stopped. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's chilling. It's making the wetness feel worse. Even though it's humid and muggy outside, this particular wind is cooling things down and kind of making it miserable. But music goes on playing quietly, not super loud. It's just Eladier singing. And after a few minutes, the troops return, and you see they pull the scarf down. They look at both of you. There's a little bit of a smile, and you see he looks at the captain and says, "It's the fortress. It's just up ahead."
All right. Let's make our way there.
You see he turns, Captain Selby looks at you, gives a nod, pulls back up onto the horse, and he holds his hand out for you if you want to jump on the horse with him.
Sure.
He lifts you up, you throw a leg over, you get behind him, and Eladier is playing. He stops playing, he's like, "Oh, come on." And the two of you start riding off, and the rest of the troops march behind. And they sort of file in, like some of the other troops that have some horses that are like more of like the pack horses, right? Like they're really just carrying gear and supplies. They fall in line, and the rest of the column moves in behind them, and Eladir just picks up his lute and continues playing. And you guys march about 20 of you now march in the direction of the smoke, and within about 10-15 minutes everybody has walked up to this fortress, and what you see is this very beautiful it just, I don't know how to describe it other than it looks very clearly not human. And I don't mean like alien or anything like that, but it's like the architecture is so distinct. You see that the walls themselves are tall. They're beautifully carved with this like leaf and vine pattern along the tops of the walls. But you see that all of them at the top and at the bottom have been stained green and brown and yellow, where nature is sort of climbing up along it and staining it with like decades, if not more, of just consistent tearing. The fortress itself has been rebuilt. There are sections of the wall that look as if they are made with a completely different type of stone. Different type of architecture altogether. Overall, the fortress is functioning. As you're approaching it, you see that. There is a gate, but you see that it is very clearly, it's like trying to upkeep like a very ancient church. Like, as soon as you fix this thing, this breaks. And this place is just very, very run down. And as you approach, you do see some soldiers in silver armor and red cloaks, Alaran soldiers up along the wall. And as you approach, you hear some cheers. Like there's a moment where they don't know. You see they kind of lift their bows, and then one of them peers over, and you hear some whispering amongst them. It's like some chattering, and they realize that you are also Alarans as you're marching with a column of people. And they start to open the gates, and as you walk in, there's cheers. Yeah, that's sort of what you see. You do also see sort of on this makeshift path up onto to the main sort of gate of this fortress, you do see like what looks like a ring of stones that sort of goes and extends around the fortress, like beyond your vision.
Okay.
You see that each of these stones, they're probably like the size of like a bike. Like they're about 2 to 3 feet tall and like 3 or 4 feet long. Like they're very oblong stones. Each of them has this large. What language do you speak?
I speak Nidoran, Ranian, Eldari, Common, and then a Thieves' tongue.
Okay. So you do see Elvish runes described onto these stones. So one rune on each one that goes all the way around, dozens of them, and then you imagine they continue around the fortress, but you don't see them. But that's what you see as you're sort of making your way in here. Putting that together, and with your background and your history of like growing up in like a scholarly background, looking at the architecture, this is very clearly an ancient Eldari ruin.
Interesting.
That has been repurposed. It has been repurposed by the Alaran military as an outpost. You approach, the towers themselves are beautiful, rounded tops, almost like, not spear points, but just a very rounded dome-like top, almost, but they come to a point rather than a dome. Gorgeous, like everything's sort of patinaed, like bronze, like the stone has just warped in color, which sort of gives it this beautiful, ethereal, ancient feel. Vines growing up that you see the people here are probably constantly trying to pull off, but have stained the walls. And that's what you see as you walk in, and you are greeted by a woman that looks to be about Captain Selvy's age, maybe a little bit younger. She's like in her 40s or 50s. Walks up to you guys, and you realize she's missing an eye. It's been cut. You see a slash there across her face. Her hair is kept very short, not buzz, but like like enough to like grab onto, but not much more there. And it looks like she did it herself. Like she took some shears and just like no care for styling whatsoever. Currently not wearing any armor. She's just in a tunic, and you see buff freaking arms as you and Captain Selvi ride inside. The rest of the column starts to pour in. Elodie and Tia following behind. She looks at you guys, and you see she. We're going to transition to the next section here. She looks at you guys and just kind of claps her hands, and the first thing she says to you is, "So my soldiers made it to the city then?" And you see Captain Selvi kind of gives her a look like, "What?" And she says, like, she doesn't say anything. She just sort of like gives you that look. He hops off the horse, helps you off, and he looks at you, Sylvetta, and just gestures to this woman and says, "This is the commander of the fort, Aaron Vallis. Aaron, this is a friend of mine, Sylvetta." And she gives you a little head nod, and she's like, I don't understand. Who is she?" And she just kind of looks at you.
Hi, I'm Sylvetta Thade. I am on an expedition. My father came out this way and has been missing for some time, and as well as one of my other companions, her brother went missing, I believe, from this fortress. And we're just
Tia
looking for
walks up.
answers.
Tia walks up, Elodie walks up, they're kind of listening in. It looks like they're gonna say something until they see Aaron's face, and Aaron is like rubbing her temples, and she's like, wait. You're not here to relieve my troops? And Captain Selvi just looks at her and, "I'm sorry, what is this about?" And she says, my soldiers, they went to the city, they went for help, they never made it?" And you see Captain Selvi just looks at her, and he's just like, "Aaron, no one has come. We haven't had contact with you for months. We thought you were dead." And then she just looks around, and she she looks like she's going crazy a little bit. Like she starts laughing. She's like, we're down to a skeleton crew on these walls. If my troops didn't make it to you, then where did they go?" Captain Selvi doesn't say anything. He just, I'm sorry, I don't know. And
What was Tia's brother's name? If you could remind me again.
Tia's brother's name, Marcus. Her brother was Marcus.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of notes I had to dig through to find that. Definitely not a character I thought was going to be coming up a lot, and that's already happened twice. Yeah, Marcus is her brother. So you ask if Marcus was here?
Yeah.
You see she nods her head, looks at you. "Marcus, yes, he was here. He's one of the troops that I sent back." You're saying they never made it?" And Captain Selvi shakes his head. And she's like, "Well, if they're not... they should have returned then, if there was problems. Where did they go?" And I'll say, as she asks that, as she says, "Where did they go?" you look around you at this pretty desolate fortress. Like, you saw two people on the walls. You look around, and you notice that there are not a lot of people here. And Aaron, Captain Vallis, is looking around, and she puts her hands on her head, and she just stares at you guys as the rest of the column continues to pour in. And she's like, "We used to be 200 strong here. Now we're 15, maybe." I hate to admit it, but I'm glad to see you. What happened to my men? And as she says that, is where we will end this episode of the Pale Lands. I'll say something seems to have happened to at least 100 troops that were stationed here in Fort Nurien. But you have made it to the first sort of milestone in the Pale Lands. And everything, I'll say that everything beyond this point, everything after this fortress, everything south of this line on the map is uncharted territory. Okay. So you are officially at like this is the farthest away from home you've ever been, Mr. Frodo moment.
Mm-hmm. The last bit of civilization.
Exactly. People don't travel farther south unless they have a particular reason. So something is happening here, something has happened, and on top of that, it hasn't stopped raining, and there is a chilling wind that has continued to pick up as you continue to travel south. But what happened here, what this fortress is, what you were going to do, we will figure out next time. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you in the next episode.